When people speak about financial struggles, they often imagine the problem as purely material. Not enough money coming in, too many bills going out, the economy collapsing, or opportunities slipping through their fingers. But that is only the surface. Beneath every visible shortage is an invisible cause. It's a mental, emotional, and spiritual blockage that distorts how we perceive value, work, and worth. The truth is, your financial condition is often a reflection of your spiritual condition. You can't hold on to abundance outwardly if you're carrying poverty inwardly. And this isn't a condemnation, it's a revelation. Because once you see that connection, you gain power. You gain control over what was once chaos. The first thing you have to understand is that financial blockages are not just about money. They're about alignment. They reveal where your beliefs and your reality are in conflict. For example, you might believe God is your provider, but deep down, you still operate as though you're alone, as though survival depends entirely on your hustle. That contradiction creates spiritual friction, a split between faith and fear. When that happens, your actions become confused. You plan like someone who trusts God, but worry like someone who doesn't. And worry is costly. It consumes time, energy, and creativity. It's like trying to move forward with the brakes pressed down. Now think about this. The spirit of lack doesn't begin in your wallet. It begins in your words. How many times have you said, I can't afford that? How often have you repeated, there's never enough? Every time those words leave your mouth, you're reinforcing a belief that cuts off possibility. Words shape reality because they express and confirm what you expect. If your language constantly affirms scarcity, your subconscious will organize your life to make that scarcity true. The mind obeys the dominant voice. And if that voice keeps declaring limitation, you will subconsciously sabotage opportunities that could lead to growth. But recognizing this pattern is the start of freedom. Because when you become aware of how your words and thoughts shape your financial outcomes, you can begin to change them. You can start to challenge the inner dialogue that has kept you in the same place. You can begin to see lack not as an identity, but as a habit. One that can be broken through awareness, faith, and disciplined action. Many people misunderstand abundance. I think it's about extravagance, about having piles of wealth. But abundance is not about possession. It's about perception. It's the ability to see possibility where others see limitation. It's realizing that God's supply is not bound by human systems. That mindset shifts everything when you know that resources are infinite in His kingdom. You stop competing, comparing, and complaining. You start creating, serving, and expanding. That's how abundance multiplies. Not through desperation, but through alignment with divine flow. So the question is, where are you misaligned? Where are your beliefs working against your prayers? Because many people pray for financial breakthrough while still believing deep down that wealth is unspiritual or undeserved. They carry guilt around success. They equate struggle with holiness, but that mindset dishonors the very nature of God, who calls Himself Jehovah Jireh, the Lord who provides. To live perpetually in lack while calling Him your provider is a contradiction of your faith. God doesn't gain glory from your poverty. He gains glory from your purpose. And you can't fulfill purpose without provision. Recognizing the spiritual source of your financial blockage means acknowledging that transformation begins within. You can't expect external prosperity while maintaining internal poverty. The shift must start with consciousness, with renewing the mind until gratitude replaces anxiety, trust replaces fear, and expectation replaces doubt. When your inner world becomes fertile with faith, your outer world begins to bear the fruit of provision. It's not magic, it's alignment. The spiritual and the physical always mirror each other. Now let's move into the next key, the power of spoken prayer and faith activation. Once you understand that financial freedom begins with spiritual clarity, the next step is to activate that truth through your words. Prayer is not begging, it's building. Every time you pray, You are constructing reality with divine cooperation. You are aligning your frequency with God's will, declaring not what you see, but what you believe. The reason many prayers about money fail is that they are rooted in fear, not faith. People cry out to God saying, please help me, I don't have enough. But that prayer is actually a confession of lack, not abundance. It's speaking the problem louder than the promise. Real prayer doesn't magnify the obstacle. It magnifies the provider. Faith-filled prayer says, Lord, I thank you that you are supplying all my needs. I may not see it yet, but I believe it's already done. That kind of prayer shifts your energy from desperation to expectation, and expectation is the magnet of miracles. Think about how Jesus prayed. He never pleaded. He declared. He thanked God. For the miracle appeared when he multiplied the loaves and fishes. He didn't say, Father, we don't have enough. He lifted what was there and said, thank you. That's faith activation, recognizing that gratitude precedes increase. The moment you thank God for what little you have, you position yourself for overflow. Spoken prayer also breaks mental inertia. The human mind tends to default to fear, but spoken faith interrupts that cycle. When you speak life, you override doubt. That's why your words matter, not because of superstition, but because they program your subconscious and signal heaven simultaneously. If your words align with truth, your circumstances will eventually align too. But here's the deeper principle. Faith is not passive belief, it's active participation. You can't just say you believe and do nothing. Faith must be spoken, but it must also be lived. When you pray for provision, you must also prepare to receive it. Preparation is proof of belief. If you're asking God for financial increase but living as if it will never come, you're contradicting your prayer. Faith prepares the field before the rain falls. It acts as though the harvest is certain. Now, some people might say, but I've prayed and nothing has changed. And I would ask, what did you expect to change? Because prayer is not a transaction, it's transformation. It changes anew. First, before your bank account shifts, your mindset must shift. Before money flows into your hands, wisdom must flow into your heart. God doesn't just want to give you resources, He wants to make you into someone who can handle them. Every spoken prayer is a seed, and seeds take time. But delay does not mean denial. The moment you speak in faith, something begins to move in the unseen. And that's why consistency is so vital. You must keep speaking, keep believing, keep thanking, even when the evidence looks unchanged. Because faith is not built in moments of abundance, it's forged in seasons of uncertainty. The longer you sustain your declaration, the stronger your alignment becomes. Prayer, then, is the daily act of realigning your thoughts with divine order, is choosing to speak abundance in the face of lack, to affirm God's provision when everything around you screams shortage, and that act, that courageous daily declaration, starts to unlock the invisible barriers that held you back. When you combine awareness of the spiritual source of your blockage with the discipline of spoken faith, you create momentum. You start to move from victimhood to responsibility, from waiting to co-creating. You stop seeing money as something you chase and begin to see it as something that flows toward purpose. And once you understand that, your entire relationship with provision transforms. It's no longer about desperation. It's about destiny. When you reach the point where you begin to pray intentionally for financial freedom, you start to understand that what truly needs to change is not the numbers in your account, but the spirit that governs them. The third key point, breaking the spirit of lack, addresses one of the most destructive and deeply rooted conditions in human psychology. The spirit of lack is not simply about being poor. It's a mindset of perpetual insufficiency. It's the belief that no matter what you do, there will never be enough. Enough money, enough opportunity, enough favor, and that belief subtly poisons every decision you make. It convinces you to play small, to hesitate, to compromise your vision before it's even tested. This spirit is ancient. It whispers in the back of your mind whenever you dream of something greater. Who are you to want that? It's the same voice that makes people cling to what's safe instead of reaching for what's possible. The problem is not that opportunities don't exist, it's that you've been trained to doubt your right to have them. Somewhere in your life, you absorb the idea that abundance is for others, not for you. That idea becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You interpret every delay as a sign of rejection, every setback as proof of failure, and every blessing as temporary. That's what the spirit of lack does. It reshapes your perception until even miracles look like coincidences. Breaking that spirit requires confrontation, not comfort. It requires you to challenge the stories you've accepted as truth. You must ask yourself, when did I start believing that I'm not worthy of overflow? Who told me that struggling is more spiritual than succeeding? Because many people have inherited patterns of lack from generations before them. They watch parents who worked endlessly but never got ahead, and they assume that's just how life is. But generational patterns can be broken when spiritual awareness enters the equation. Once you recognize that poverty isn't your identity, it's an inherited script, you gain the power to rewrite it. That's why the first prayer, Lord, I renounce the spirit of lack and I receive the spirit of abundance, is not symbolic, it's surgical. You are cutting away a spiritual parasite that has been feeding on your belief system for years. When you declare it, you're not just speaking words, you're issuing a command to your subconscious. I will no longer think, act, or speak from a position of limitation. This declaration realigns your identity with truth. The truth that you were created by an abundant God in an abundant universe for an abundant purpose. But breaking the spirit of lack doesn't mean sitting idly by waiting for money to rain from heaven. It means transforming how you interpret every situation that comes your way. When you face a financial challenge, do you shrink back in fear or step forward in faith? Do you see problems as walls or as doors disguised in difficulty? The person who has broken the spirit of lack no longer panics when resources seem thin. They understand that the absence of something physical is merely an invitation for spiritual creativity. Lack becomes a teacher, not a tyrant. And this is where the power of spiritual and psychological renewal meet. You can't pray your way out of poverty if you think your way back into it every day. If you pray for abundance but continue speaking words of defeat, you are building and destroying your own house simultaneously. Your thoughts are the architects, your words are the builders, and your habits are the foundation. The moment these three align, transformation begins. That's why renouncing the spirit of lack is not a one-time prayer. It's a daily practice of choosing faith over fear, generosity over greed, and gratitude over complaint. Once that transformation begins, you move into the fourth key, declaring divine alignment and opportunity. Because after you break the old pattern, you must build a new one. It's not enough to remove the blockage. You must now direct the flow. Divine alignment is about syncing your internal state with the external path God has designed for you. It's asking not just for provision, but for precision, for the wisdom to walk through the right doors at the right time. Most people fail, not because God hasn't blessed them, but because they're not aligned with what He's doing. They're chasing outcomes that don't match their calling. They pray for opportunities that contradict their preparation. And then they wonder why nothing seems to work. But alignment requires humility. It's the willingness to say, God, I don't just want what looks good, I want what's right for me. When you pray for divine alignment, you are surrendering control in order to gain clarity. You are saying, I trust that you see further than I can. Divine alignment doesn't always feel comfortable. Sometimes God will close a door you were convinced was yours. But if you have the patience to look deeper, you'll see that rejection was protection. He was aligning you with something greater, something sustainable. The problem is that many people give up right before alignment completes its work. They see a delay and call it denial, not realizing that God's timing is designed to mature them. For the blessing they're asking for, to declare divine alignment, is to invite awareness into every decision. It's learning to discern between impulse and instruction. Impulse is emotional. It wants what feels urgent. Instruction is spiritual. It knows what's essential. When you live by impulse, you'll always chase opportunities that drain you. But when you live by divine instruction, you'll recognize doors that lead to purpose. That awareness changes everything. You stop asking, why isn't this working? And start asking, is this what I was meant to do? Opportunities are not random, they are spiritual appointments. They show up when preparation meets purpose. That's why your daily habits matter. You can't ask God for a financial breakthrough and then live in disorganization, laziness, or fear. Alignment requires responsibility. God opens the door, but you still have to walk through it. The faith that prays for a miracle must also be the faith that wakes up early, studies diligently, and manages wisely. Faith without structure is wasted potential. And yet divine alignment is not about perfection. It's about partnership. It's about walking so closely with God that even your mistakes are redirected toward purpose. When your life is aligned with His wisdom, detours become development and delays become preparation. You stop fighting every closed door because you trust that His timing never wastes your time. You begin to realize that what's meant for you will not require manipulation. It will flow naturally because divine order always produces divine outcomes. So when you pray, Father, align my thoughts, decisions, and steps with your divine opportunities, you are not merely asking for favor. You are volunteering for transformation. You are giving God permission to refine your desires until they match His design. That's why this prayer changes everything. It shifts you from striving to flowing. Instead of forcing results, you start following revelation. Instead of running after provision, you walk toward purpose, and provision begins to follow you. Financial unblocking is not simply about accumulation. It's about alignment. Because once you are aligned, you stop chasing money and start attracting it. You become someone who magnetizes opportunity through integrity, excellence, and vision. Your life begins to reflect divine order. And in that order, abundance finds you effortlessly. That's the mystery of the kingdom. When you seek alignment first, overflow follows naturally. There's a moment that comes after you've broken the spirit of lack and aligned yourself with divine opportunity. When you begin to sense that something inside you has shifted, you start to see that abundance isn't just a concept. It's a spiritual reality waiting to manifest through your discipline and obedience. That's where the next stage begins. Invoking overflow and stewardship. Overflow isn't an accident. It's the natural result of alignment, faith, and preparation converging at the same point in your life. But here's what's often missed. Overflow is never given to people who are careless with what they already have. The same God who multiplies also measures. He watches how you handle the little to determine whether you're ready for the much when you pray. Lord, release your overflow into my hands and teach me to steward it wisely. You're acknowledging a crucial truth. Abundance without stewardship is destruction disguised as blessing. If you receive what you're not ready to manage, what was meant to lift you will crush you. That's why stewardship is not a boring secondary topic. It's sacred. It's the language of maturity. You're telling God, I don't just want more, I want to become more. Because overflow doesn't simply fill your bank account. It expands your capacity to handle responsibility, generosity, and purpose. Stewardship begins in small things. If you cannot manage peace, how will you manage prosperity? If you cannot handle criticism, how will you handle influence? Every level of increase demands a new level of structure. You cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. They will burst. So when you pray for overflow, you must be prepared for God to restructure you first. He will challenge your habits, confront your excuses, and call you into excellence. Because God doesn't waste blessings. He invests them in people who will multiply what they're given. To steward overflow means you must become both wise and generous. Wisdom keeps what you earn from slipping through your fingers. Generosity ensures that what you have doesn't harden your heart. The flow of divine provision is maintained through circulation, not stagnation. The more you give, the more room you create to receive. But giving without wisdom leads to depletion, and wisdom without giving leads to greed. That's why the prayer includes both. overflow, and stewardship. They are inseparable. One fills your life, the other sustains it. We often imagine overflow as a flood of financial blessings, but its true nature is multidimensional. It includes ideas, connections, peace, and opportunities that extend beyond money. You can have wealth without overflow and still feel empty. Overflow is the sense that everything in your life is expanding in purpose and harmony. It's when your work, relationships, and finances begin to reflect divine order. You stop surviving and start building. You stop asking for blessings and start becoming a blessing. That's when abundance becomes generative. It no longer stops with you, but there's a deeper principle at play here. Overflow doesn't start when you have more. It starts when you manage what you already have. With gratitude and precision. Gratitude turns maintenance into multiplication. When you thank God for what's in your hand, you invite Him to breathe on it. That's why Jesus lifted the 5 loaves and 2 fish, not to complain about the insufficiency, but to bless it. The blessing preceded the increase. Likewise, the way you treat what's currently in your care determines whether heaven can trust you with more. Every dollar, every idea, every opportunity is a test of stewardship. When you live as a steward, not an owner, everything changes. Ownership breeds anxiety. You constantly feel lost because you think everything depends on you. Stewardship breeds peace. You understand that you're managing what ultimately belongs to God. That mindset frees you from the fear of scarcity. You realize that as long as you're faithful with what He's given, He will continue to supply. That's why faithful people rarely panic in seasons of uncertainty. They've learned that divine flow doesn't dry up. It just shifts direction. And this brings us naturally to the final key in this section. Living in expectation of overflow. Expectation is not wishful thinking. It's spiritual posture. It's the confident anticipation that God's promises will manifest. Because His nature is faithful. Living in expectation means you carry a readiness to receive. You act like someone who believes increase is inevitable. You plan for it, you prepare for it, and you protect your mindset against anything that contradicts it. Because what you expect determines what you attract. If you expect failure, you unconsciously create it. If you expect favor, you recognize it even in small beginnings. Expectation is the bridge between faith and manifestation. It keeps your spirit alert. Many people pray powerful prayers, but live with defeated expectations. They ask for breakthrough and then behave as though they've already been denied. That's spiritual contradiction. You can't plant seeds of faith and water them with doubt. Expectation sustains the momentum of belief. Says, even though I haven't seen it yet, I know it's on the way. That inner certainty draws the unseen into the visible. It's not magic, it's the natural result of alignment between thought, word, and faith. However, expectation is not entitlement. Entitlement demands, expectation prepares. When you expect overflow, you don't sit passively waiting for it. You position yourself to receive it. You develop skills. You nurture relationships. You organize your finances. Expectation gives birth to readiness. If God opened a door tomorrow, would you be ready to walk through it? Many people miss divine opportunities because they pray for miracles. They're not prepared to sustain. They want to be promoted without being processed. But expectation, when grounded in faith, produces discipline. It trains you to live today as if tomorrow's breakthrough has already been set in motion. Living in expectation also means cultivating an atmosphere that welcomes abundance. Your environment influences your energy. Chaos repels blessing because it signals disorder, but order invites favor. That's why simple acts, cleaning your workspace, budgeting your money, planning your week, are spiritual practices. They communicate to God that you are serious about managing what's coming. Preparation is prophecy. It declares, I'm ready for what I prayed for. Yet expectation must be rooted in gratitude. Without gratitude, your anticipation turns into anxiety. You start obsessing over what hasn't happened yet instead of appreciating what already has. Gratitude anchors expectation in peace. It reminds you that the same God who blessed you yesterday is capable of exceeding that blessing tomorrow. Every moment of thankfulness expands your awareness of divine provision, and that awareness keeps the flow open. Gratitude is magnetic. It attracts more of what you honor. Living in expectation of overflow also means guarding your mind against cynicism. It's easy to lose hope when you face repeated setbacks. But setbacks are not signs of abandonment. They are signals of refinement. They prepare you for the weight of what's coming. God often tests your expectation before He fulfills it, because He wants to ensure that your faith is built on trust, not circumstance. If you can stay hopeful when everything looks uncertain, you prove that your faith is genuine. And genuine faith always draws supernatural provision. You must learn to wake up each day expecting divine movement, even if you can't see it. Expectation is vision. It allows you to see beyond your current season and speak life into your future. It's standing in the desert and declaring rain. It's looking at the seed and imagining the harvest. The mind that expects overflow will naturally make decisions that lead toward it. It will spot opportunity in disguise. Speak life where others complain, and persist when others quit. When you live like that, something extraordinary happens. You stop pursuing blessings and start embodying them. You become the kind of person through whom God's abundance naturally flows. People will begin to notice it too. Not just the material results, but the peace, the purpose, the quiet confidence that surrounds you, because expectation changes your presence. It radiates conviction that draws favor and trust. Overflow, stewardship, and expectation form a cycle that sustains itself. The more wisely you manage what you have, the more you're trusted with. The more you're trusted with, the greater your expectation grows. The greater your expectation, the more capacity you develop to receive. It's an ever-expanding spiral of faith, discipline, and gratitude. And as it deepens, you realize that financial unblocking is only the surface. What's really happening is spiritual expansion. You're becoming someone who not only receives abundance, but reflects it in every area of life.